listening to the Compassion Fatigue podcast with your host, Jennifer Blau. This is session 31. Well, hello there, and welcome to the Compassion Fatigue podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. So before I introduce our guest, I wanted to let you know that in order to practice what I preach, to take some time and practice my own self-care, I wanted to let you know that I will be taking the month of August off. Again, this is in an effort to practice my own self-care. And we are going to be back in September, so I hope that you will join me then. But today we have on the show Ben Nachmani. He leads the Wellness and Performance Program at Interizon, a Toronto-based neurotechnology company. Ben works with healthcare professionals, corporations, sports team, and research institutions to bring Muse, the brain-sensing headbands, to their demographics. Ben graduated from McGill University with a degree in psychology and marketing. Muse is a brain-sensing headband that makes meditation easier. Meditation has been proven to reduce stress and increase focus, but it can be hard to know if you're doing it right. And so the cool thing about Muse is that it provides you with real-time audio feedback on what's happening in your brain when you meditate, letting you know when your mind wanders, and teaching you to regain focus. So you can think of Muse almost as your personal guide to meditation as you journey toward a calmer and more present self. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ben Nachmani. Hi, Ben. Welcome to the Compassion Fatigue podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm really excited to share this with our listeners. So I met Ben, it's been a little over a year, and we met out at a conference in California. And this is where I was first introduced to the Muse headband. And so Ben, can you tell our listeners what exactly is Muse?
Of course. So Muse is a brain-sensing headband, something that may sound really crazy, but really it's quite simple in its form. It's really wearable technology that focuses on letting you interact with your mind in a completely new way. And we have an application that helps you learn how to meditate by giving you real-time feedback based off of your mental state. So Muse, the headband, goes just across your forehead and behind your ears, kind of looks similar to a headband, but you would put it on just like you'd put on a pair of glasses. And what we do is we give you kind of a gamification of meditation. So when you're calm and focused, what you hear through our application are calm and tranquil sounds of weather. And as your mind wanders, the sounds of the weather become louder in real time. So at the end of every session, you're actually able to get analytics and statistics based off your mental state. And it kind of helps us break down those barriers that people face in developing the practice of meditation.
So you mentioned that there's an app and it measures certain analytics. What exactly does the headband measure when we're talking about brain activity?
Right. So the headband itself is what's called an EEG device, electroencephalogy. And it's really the same technology that you'd get if you've ever gone to a neurologist or you've gone and had a concussion testing, for example, stroke testing, things like that. Traditionally, if you'd go into a hospital, you'd have a machine that had kind of like something like a swim cap with lots of wires coming out of it. And you'd put an electroconductive gel all over your hair, and the electrodes then would sit on your scalp. And what it does is it actually picks up the electrical activity of your neurons firing. What we've done is we've taken that same technology, but made it into a super sleek, easy to use, and affordable headband. And we don't have any electroconductive gels. It doesn't have any wires. It's totally wireless. And basically it just sits on, and there's sensor points that sit across the forehead and behind your ears. And what it's measuring is your brainwave activity. So the same way that if you're taking if you're having a heart rate sensor, for example, and you're reading EKG, the same thing, but reading the brain activity. And there's different power bands that your brain emits, alpha waves, beta waves, theta waves, etc. They all correlate to different states. And what we've done is we've created an algorithm that actually looks at what your brain is like when it's in a state of calm and focused attention, thereby meditation, or in a state of wandering mind or a busy mind, thereby distraction.
And unlike the EEG, I don't know if you've ever had one, but the Muse headband is slightly less terrifying, right? It's just,
Oh, yeah, no question.
yeah, you don't look like Medusa with all these wires coming out of your head. Really, it's just a headband that kind of hooks on, it sits behind the ears and kind of goes across the forehead. And it's a very simple concept, yet it's extremely effective.
Exactly. We've really taken kind of a medical device and wrapped it up into just a consumer product. So Muse itself isn't a medical device, though it does get the same clinically equivalent readings to a medical grade EEG. We're just doing so on kind of a much lower spatial coverage. So we're not looking at the whole brain. What we're looking at is specific areas of kind of the prefrontal cortex and the temporal parietal regions of the brain. And we're able to pick up those regions and really look at what's going on in your brain as you're meditating, and then being able to give you the feedback through our really easy to use application, which you just download on Apple or Android. And that really helps you learn that skill of getting into a more focused state. So it's nothing scary. It's a consumer product. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at Target, buy it at stores like Best Buy. It's really, think about it as the first piece of wearable technology that allows you to focus on what's going on in your brain as opposed to what's going on in your body.
Yeah, and also unlike an EEG, it is portable, right? So you can take this wherever you go. And I think another scary word for some people is the word meditation, right? So we're going to get a little later to different types of meditation, but can you tell us the difference between using Muse and trying to just meditate on your own?
So the end goal with Muse is to develop a practice with meditation. And why we developed the product was because we realized that the research has come out now that really identifies how powerful meditation is as a tool. The issue is that it's very hard to understand and kind of master a skill that lacks feedback. So we're all very conditioned in this day and age to get feedback from our actions. That's how we learn in school. That's basically how we have conversations with people. We're able to interact with others. But when you try and learn how to meditate, it's kind of abstract. You're told to kind of focus on your breathing. You're not sure what to do when your mind wanders. Is it about thinking about nothing? Is it about thinking about your breath? So what we've done is we've developed a really simple kind of training program that gives you lessons as well as that feedback through the sound and analytics at the end of every session to really break down the barriers of, am I doing this right? And is this working? Those are the two questions that we try and answer when using Muse. So in traditional meditation, there's many types of meditation. We focus on specifically focused attention meditation. So the goal in focused attention meditation is to use your breath as what you call an anchor and bring yourself into a more focused state by focusing on your breathing. So imagine this kind of conceptual loop where you're trying to focus on your breathing, your mind begins to wander, and then you realize your mind has wandered, so you bring yourself back to the focusing on your breath. Regularly, you may try and focus on your breath. Your mind wanders, you start thinking about the grocery lists, your kids, etc., and it takes you some time to be able to realize, oh wow, my mind's wandered, let me focus back on my breathing. With Muse, what we do is we give you auditory feedback right then and there. So the moment that your mind starts wandering, what you're going to hear are the sounds of the weather environment that you chose, such as a rainforest, an ocean, a desert, get louder in real time. As you're able to bring yourself into a focused and more relaxed state, the sounds become very calm and tranquil. And we have very cool things like birds chirping when you're doing very well to really kind of encourage you to get yourself into that focused state. So what we do is we train something that's called the attentional loop. And our idea is kind of making Muse almost a personal trainer for your mind, where as soon as you're losing form, as your mind begins to wander, we're giving you that feedback so that you are able to catch yourself and bring yourself back into a focused state more quickly. And through that feedback and through the analytics at the end of every session, where we kind of gamify it and give you scores and give you statistics, it really helps you stay a bit more engaged in the practice of meditation so that then you can learn how to do it without Muse eventually.
And so really it sounds like it's almost a Fitbit for the brain.
Absolutely. So we do call it that sometimes, but yeah, it's wearable technology for the brain. So it's the idea around kind of meeting people where they are today. In terms of, we are all very connected. We use our smartphones. We like getting feedback. So why not use technology and the advances that we can have by actually pairing these kind of two trends of wearable technology and more of a data-driven approach to things with mindfulness and meditation.
And you mentioned something a little earlier about how users can basically choose their scene. So whether it's an ocean, a beachfront, or a rainforest. So it sounds like the Muse is able to be customized.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can actually take you, just for the listeners, I can take you guys through exactly how you would do a session. So it's very simple. What you do with Muse is you turn on the headband and you pair the headband via Bluetooth to your phone. The Muse app, it can be downloaded for free on Android or Apple devices. It's all mobile, so it works on your iPad, your tablet, your phone, but it wouldn't work on your computer. And that's because it really is designed to be completely portable. When you launch a session, you choose the sound environment that you want to be in. So you choose a rainforest, an ocean, a desert. We have about 5 different sound environments. You then also choose the length of time you want to meditate for. So you don't need to start at doing a 20-minute meditation with your legs crossed. Really what we do is we break it down so that you're starting with 3 minutes. You put on the headband, you press go, and the session begins with a quick calibration. And it calibrates to where you are that day. So whether you are extremely relaxed, whether you're extremely caffeinated and distracted, whether you've just gotten in a fight, whether you've had a traumatic experience, Muse is going to know where you are when you're coming into that session, and it's going to adapt the sound and audio feedback to you in that moment. As you begin to meditate, what you hear are the sounds changing depending on your mental state. So Muse is like a mirror to your mind. It's not actually trying to induce you into a specific state. What it's doing is it's letting you know where you are so that you can more quickly identify that and practice that skill of actually bringing yourself back into a focused state. And the idea is that as you learn how to control the sounds of the weather, you are thereby learning that skill of controlling your own mind. And you can utilize that skill in your everyday life when you're having those experiences that are traumatic, that are escalating, that are stressful, etc. It teaches you that skill of being able to focus on your breathing so that you can quiet the storm that is your life, as opposed to quieting the storm that is Muse later on.
So it sounds like what you're saying is eventually, say you're at work and you can't really be walking around with your Muse headband on, but the skills that you're going to learn from using Muse on a regular basis, you're going to be able to kind of tap into those skills and be able to start calming yourself down.
That's exactly the point of the application. So Muse is a training tool. It's really designed to be used. You're not using it all day. You're using it when you are trying to practice and develop that skill of meditation. And the idea behind Muse is that we're kind of expediting the process of practicing that skill by giving you that feedback and giving you those tangible analytics so you can keep track of your progress over time. So the goal is that as you practice with Muse, you learn how to identify the feelings of your mind wandering and how to identify that skill of bringing yourself back into a focused state. And once you've actually kind of practiced that through the application itself, when you bring yourself into those experiences in your everyday life, though you're not going to pull out the Muse and do a session right there, you've learned those fundamental skills of being able to calm yourself, become more focused, and you can utilize them in your everyday life experiences. And that's why we specifically teach focused attention meditation with breath as your anchor, because no matter where you are, you can always focus on your breathing and take a couple deep breaths, whether that's with your eyes closed or with your eyes open when speaking to someone. It's just really a tool to help you learn that skill of de-escalation.
Yeah, and unlike traditional meditation, at least in my opinion, the Muse headband it's not intimidating. Like traditional meditation can be slightly intimidating, and you touched on this. Am I doing this right? What do I do if my mind wanders? It's really it's fun. It's relaxing, and you also touched on this a little bit, but let's talk about some of the overall benefits of meditation. So when we talk about compassion fatigue, there are so many symptoms: depression, anxiety, stress, insomnia. What type of symptoms do you think that meditation is really going to target?
So, in general, the main thing that meditation does is it helps you with your emotional regulation. And there are different types of meditation, and there's different literature to show its connections with all kinds of things like you just mentioned, right? Your ability to reduce your stress, the ability to stop your wandering mind as you're trying to sleep and help with insomnia, the ability to help with things like depression and even post traumatic stress disorder. The main reason why meditation has been able to do that is because your brain is a muscle. And if you are able to train your brain to do new things, it acts just like a muscle in when you go and work out in a gym. So we teach Muse and we teach focused attention and relaxation through this principle of neuroplasticity. And what neuroplasticity means is that you are able to change the way that your brain works and make certain aspects of thought processes or trainings easier for you to accomplish over time. So think about it in the mindset of working out in a gym. If you are going and you're lifting weights by yourself, you may not know how well you're doing, you may not have perfect form, and you may kind of just give up after a couple of reps because your muscles are tired. But the more you practice, the stronger that muscle will become and the easier it will become to lift that weight. If you get a personal trainer, that personal trainer will help you by kind of getting you to be right in the right state, making sure that you're lifting weights properly and safely, and kind of encouraging you to push yourself a little bit farther so you see that progress. Muse is that personal trainer for meditation, and your brain is the muscle that you're working out. So what we're doing with Muse is we're helping you practice that neuroplasticity of almost your reaction time in a way, your ability to catch your mind as it's wandering to that negative place, to that distracted place a bit quicker, and being able to practice that skill of bringing yourself back into a focused state. Meditation is a very important aspect of self-care. And you really just need to think about it in the mindset of, your brain is the basis of everything. And whether you are working, you're having a conversation with someone, you're working on challenging tasks or not, everything is coming from your mental power in a way. So your ability to really be in control of your emotions and have an understanding of kind of where you're at is really one of the most important things that meditation teaches. For everyone that practices it, they'll accomplish different things, and that really depends on what you're working on. But again, the plethora of research really does show that meditation can be so beneficial in the reduction of burnout in general, and that burnout can cause so many different things, from stress to anxiety to depression to PTSD to lack of sleep, etc.
Yeah, so I think sometimes when people hear the word meditation, they think, oh, it's a woo-woo kind of thing. But really, I mean, this has scientific backing. So there used to be this belief that once the brain was traumatized, that's it. That's the brain you have to live with, right? But now we know with neuroplasticity that this is not true. We can actually change the brain. And we've talked about this on prior episodes with things like deep breathing and, 30 minutes of daily walking. But what we know now also is that meditation can actually change the brain as well.
Absolutely. So, even when I, was studying not so long ago, there was still kind of this concept of, the human brain stops developing at a certain age. And what we found from a lot of research, including that of Dr. Norman Doidge, who's actually one of our advisory board members, it's kind of been proven that taking actions of repetitive exercises can actually affect and make tangible changes, not only in the way that you think and you relate to things, but also in the physical nature of your brain. Things like development of more gray matter, things like enlargements of different areas of the brain. And that's what's really cool. So the issue with all of that is that there's very few tools for us to use to actually help us engage with our brains in a new way. And that's why we developed Muse, because we thought that we could marry this idea of using technology to help you interact with yourself in a new way, as well as bringing these concepts and thoughts about mindfulness and meditation to a new place. It's fantastic that, people have been meditating for thousands of years, and they've done research on Buddhist monks, for example, that have shown actual true differences in the anatomy of their brains than those who had not practiced meditation. Of course, not all of us will now be able to go and dedicate our lives to meditation and do it for several hours a day. So we're looking for new ways in which we can kind of expedite that process of being able to learn that skill and keep us engaged with it in our increasingly distracted lifestyles. That's really the approach that we're taking with Muse meditation in itself.
And Ben, I really like the fact that you brought up PTSD. I think a lot of our listeners, while they might not be struggling with full-blown clinical PTSD, there is so much secondary and vicarious trauma that goes along with animal rescue and animal welfare work in in general. And so it sounds like meditation with the Muse headband can be really beneficial for people that are struggling with trauma.
Yeah, and I would always say, Muse itself is not a medical treatment, it's not a medical device. So, if you are if you are experiencing issues, then it is always best to go and speak with a mental health practitioner. And many mental health practitioners do use Muse in their practice. But really, the idea is we all know that we need to take more time for ourselves. We have extremely busy and stressful lives, and especially those of your listeners who are working in this specific area of work, it can be quite traumatizing. So the idea is that we all want to encourage each other to take more time for ourselves. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to kind of just press pause. It's hard to stay encouraged and engaged when you're trying to take time for yourself. So what we've done with Muse is developed a paradigm to kind of help you do that. And if you can do it without Muse and you can find that you're able to meditate by yourself, or you have other ways of kind of connecting with yourself, whether it be exercising or going on long walks, things like that, there's no right way to do this. What we've found is that we've developed a tool which has resonated quite well with kind of our modern mindset, to help get you there. But really, the goal in itself is to help us all better manage ourselves. And, we are the most important asset that we have, our personal ability to engage with others, do our work well, be happy. And that's a very important thing that we should be able to take as many steps as possible in helping with the mental side of that process.
Yeah, and like you said, you don't have to set aside 2 hours a day, right? So, how often and for how long do you recommend people meditate with Muse?
So in that, it's really start in the way that you can start. So we've developed challenges within the application itself, and those challenges begin with you doing a 3-minute session, and then they basically say, now do 2 sessions this week. Build yourself up to a 7-minute session. So even if you just start with Muse and just kind of follow the instructions and the gamification within the application, I think that you'll find that you're already able to increase your cadence and your consistency of practice. Traditional research with meditation talks about meditating for 10 minutes a day over a period of 6 weeks. And what we've seen with that through a study at University of Toronto that we conducted was that we actually saw an increase in reaction time. So people were able to react more quickly on a Stroop test, which is that test, maybe if some of you guys studied psychology in your undergraduate, where you see a color, so it would say blue, for example, and it would be blue written in blue or blue written in pink. And you need to react to the color that you're seeing or the word that you're seeing in different times of the test. We also saw a decrease in somatic symptoms, so things associated with back pain, headaches, etc., and an increase in general affect. So that's a study that we did personally, but traditionally, that's kind of the period of time in which they look for to actually start experiencing and seeing tangible differences would be practicing for a period of about 6 weeks and doing it for 10 minutes a day. That being said, I would never ask anyone to start at 10 minutes if they don't think that it's right for them. Start with 3. And that's where we develop the application and work your way up from there. And really, our goal is to kind of eliminate a lot of these misconceptions about what meditation is. Meditation does not have to be sitting cross-legged. Meditation does not mean that you're thinking about nothing and you've stopped your mind. What meditation is the practice of essentially exercising your mind and cultivating a positive mindset. And meditation is the exercise of doing that. And mindfulness is the act of living your everyday life with that mindset. And that's kind of the two differences between the terms, which are both buzzwords that are out a lot these days.
It's so funny on this show. I usually tell people in order to relax, unplug the phone, unplug the TV, turn off the computer, set your laptop aside. But in this case, really, being connected to your phone or other mobile device is actually a good thing. So you mentioned the app. Tell us about the Muse app.
Yeah, so really the app is what you interact with. The headband is quote unquote the data collection tool. So the headband itself is just a sensor, and you put the headband on, but really everything that you do is your interaction with our application. And it is a bit of a different approach, we'll admit it. And some people who are very traditional meditators don't resonate with it because we are incorporating technology into this ancient practice. And if you are able to practice meditation without help, then we invite you to. We're not saying that Muse is the right way of doing it. All we're trying to do is introduce a novel approach to helping people get to that same end goal. So the Muse app itself is really designed to be kind of your meditation coach. And it's what you interact with in terms of hearing the sound. So generally when you do a Muse session, you either put in your headphones, or if you're in a quiet room, you would just listen to the sound coming out of the phone itself. And then at the end of every session, you get a bunch of analytics. So you get these things called birds. Birds start chirping when you stay calm for 5 seconds in a row. You get recoveries. A recovery is when your mind has wandered and you've heard the sounds get louder and you've brought them back into a focused state. You also try and build out your streak. So the streak is how many days in a row can you meditate? And all of that gamification really helps users stay engaged with the practice. Everyone will resonate with different things. So some people become obsessed with the scores and love getting their streaks, etc. Other people, the score doesn't really matter to them, but they just love getting the feedback. And we invite you to play around with the application in different ways to play with it like that. But our approach really is to kind of take a modern spin on an ancient practice and meet you where you are. So, we are always conditioned to learn through this idea of trying something and then getting feedback and then changing. And with meditation, it's very hard to do that because it's only you and yourself. There's no feedback that you're getting in traditional meditation. And that's where Muse and the Muse app come in really taking this technologically enhanced approach to practicing the skill.
And so, Ben, I know that you have a special offer for our listeners today for anyone who's interested in picking up their own Muse.
Definitely. So one of our biggest mandates here at Muse is to really help healthcare practitioners, healthcare providers, and every one of your listeners really falls into that space. And so we always do give discounted pricing, and we're happy to offer it to your listeners. If you go and click on the link on her podcast website, we do have a 15% off promotion on Muse, which is available to all of your listeners. So simply follow the link. And if you go to our website, you'll be able to learn lots more about the product. It explains everything in great detail. It also takes you through a bunch of our research, and there's lots of videos there. Click on that link, and it will actually auto-populate a discount right in the checkout. So you don't even need to enter a code or anything. Then you'll be able to enjoy the product yourself. And because we do know that meditation is a very hard thing to practice and that the technology approach may not be for everyone, we do have a 60-day money-back guarantee on the product. So we really do invite people to try it, try and build a practice with it and enjoy it and see the differences in their life.
Well, very cool. Thank you so much, Ben. And I'm going to put all those links up on the show notes page at thecompassionfatiguepodcast.com. Ben, is there anything else that you'd like to add for our listeners today?
Just the fact that, we have an enormous amount of potential in enacting changes in our own lives. And really a lot of that comes from just that consistency of practice. And meditation conceptually is such a simple thing. What could be easier than just focusing on your breathing? Your body knows how to breathe. In fact, you don't even think about the fact that you breathe 90% of the time. So whether it be with Muse or with another application or with a teacher or just in your own approach of finding it out, I think that if you just take the time to spend maybe 4 to 6 weeks, really engage with yourself and identifying those feelings that when you do feel stressed, when you do feel a lot of anxiety, etc., being able to bring yourself back into that focus state helps you so much. So I challenge all of you who are listening, whether it be with Muse or without, to really take some time for yourself every day, whether it be 3 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, to really just engage with yourself and focus on your own feelings and emotions to help you be more consistent and compassionate in your everyday work.
Well said, Ben. Thank you so much again for being here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And thank you so much for doing such great work.
Thanks, Ben. Take care. Thank you again for listening to the Compassion Fatigue podcast. Please remember that we are going to be taking a break during the month of August. And again, this is really to practice what I preach, which is self-care. Please head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show so you never miss a single episode. And if you want to connect with other listeners, head on over to thecompassionfatiguepodcast.com, and there you will find a link to join our private Facebook group. Please remember that this podcast is not meant to provide medical advice or substitute for psychological care. Please consult with a mental health professional if you need additional support, and if you are feeling suicidal, please go to your nearest emergency room or call 911.